Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome. If you're watching this from the RD channel, sorry I can't be with you in chat today or talk to you directly, but it's wonderful to have you here. Today we're going to do something really interesting, I think, is just 5 ways to enrich your week, which is a nice kind of starter for a Monday. For those of you that are new, welcome. For those that aren't, welcome back. Let's kick it off, I think. And there's an intention for today that I'd like everyone to hold if possible. It's a wonderful way to start to hold in your mind and your hearts that you are worthy. You are worthy and you are enough. And for me, this is a very important way to start a week. It's a very important way to start any day. But we may have had messages in the past that do not have the same emphasis as this. We may have had messages in the past that say that you're not worthy, you're unacceptable, you're not like other people. So I'm here to tell you today to hold as an intention for this session that you are worthy. You are worthy and you are enough. And if you ever need to check how you feel on that in the shower in the morning, first thing, try say that to yourself while the water's running over you. I can promise you, the more you say it, the more you believe it. Just the way when we're younger, we get told messages about who we are. And the more we hear them, the more we believe them. So today I thought it would be really wonderful to do 5 ways to enrich your week, because this is going out as a pre-recording on a Monday, but this really is 5 ways to enrich any kind of process as we move through into the beginning of new things, or as we move into spaces that require perhaps a slightly new approach, a slightly new way of thinking. We have many ways that we exist and think about ourselves in the world, but sometimes we just need a little tweak. A little tweak is all we need. So let's get on with it. Let's go through. The first one I wanted to talk about is the first little tip to really enriching your life. And enriching is an interesting term, because enriching doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better all the time. It means it's going to be fuller, more perspective, more understanding, more knowledge, and therefore more insight that I can do things about. And so the first thing I want to say is, it is really important to record your story. It's really important that the narrative of your life does not just become a trail into the distance, and that becomes something that is really important about who you are and what you have been, and who you're going to perhaps be in the future on planet Earth. And the reason why this is so, I think, profound is that your story is literally who you are, yet we don't take time to record it. But if we can reflect on it, it means that we have something to look back on. All of the stories, when they're being written, might not sound impressive or important, but once someone has collected the thoughts and written about a story, and then we read them back, and we're always like, well, that's a good narrative. But so many times we get lost in our daily grind, in just coping with the stress levels we have, or whatever it is we might be doing. And so if you can record and have a tome, and by tome I mean a collection of whatever it is that is the narrative, something physical, something real, something created in the world, not just your own memories. I often tell clients that, start your memoirs, whatever that might look like for you. Write it down, a sentence, a paragraph, voice notes at this point, videos. So if we can reflect on our narrative, it makes us feel more grounded. Yes, some of the stories in our past are quite difficult, but if we write them down, we can see over time that we have growth, because growth is rarely noticed on the fly. You hardly ever recognize your growth in the moment, when you're stressed, when you're just trying to get the day done, when you wake up, when you go to bed. We often labor on the parts of our lives that aren't great. We don't notate or write down all the parts that are okay or mundane, or that are kind of moving forward. So it's really important to know that we don't see growth. So by recording your story is a great way to enrich the way that you live. And just make a small time throughout the day, and this is the tip, to record your story. And it could be anything, but try and do it once a day. It can be 2 words written on a napkin. It can be a video blog. It can be a published work, if you will. But make time and make it small. The idea here is not to be too onerous and create this massive, impossible benchmark that we can never reach. So there are no rules to this. Recording your story, there are no rules. Yes, we read novels and we see movies, but those are those formats. whatever format you want to choose, record your story, whatever that looks like. Record anything and record it in any way. Some ideas, of course, are journaling, which is really useful. Just waking up, putting a few words down. A quick video check-in. You can record a video of yourself. Hey, it's the 22nd or 23rd of August, and I'm feeling this way, and yesterday was interesting, and today is kind of got some anxiety. Record it. You can put messages of intention. That's writing down little post-it notes for you, and I'll talk about those too now. So recording your story is an incredible way to reflect on the complexity and the growth and the history of you as a human being. The one idea I have here is a journal, and this is just some simple questions in the morning, very straightforward. How are you feeling? How do you feel about the day? Is there anything that you feel good about? Honor yourself today. What are you going to? What do you want to ask for today? And at the end of the day, a quick little journaling, which is to go, well, how was the day? How are you feeling? Anything important happened? Is there anything that you can find in the day that worked for you? Because the days are often remembered by their stress and not often by their grace. So was there any grace today? Was there anything, and it's important to have this balance, because recording your story is about perspective. And if I record the story, I gain perspective. If I look back, I can see growth. Or maybe sometimes I don't see growth at all, or I don't see growth in a way that it makes me very happy. So I'm going, okay, this has been the same kind of humdrum for the last 2 weeks. And that insight really only comes from recording the story. And the other thing you can try to do, which I quite like as well, is I call it a wish bowl, for example. I don't have a better word to call it. But just get some stickies or some Post-its and then write into each one of them just something about the day. Whatever it might be, it doesn't really matter. And then fold it, put the date on it, and just pop it into a bowl. And let that bowl fill up with lots of colorful Post-it notes. Or it could be written down on any kind of paper. And so if you collect these things, you can see you're starting to create a tome, a history. You're starting to record your story. This will deeply, deeply enrich one's life. The second thing I want to talk about is big, small change. And we often view change as having to be something onerous and large, but actually change is most effective in small, nuanced pieces. Small iterative changes is actually where we create big change. So choose something this week. Choose anything. Choose one adjustment you'd like to make, one behavioral change, something to implement, whatever that might be. And have it as the only focus in the week. So don't lob on gym on top and eating better and drinking water and going to sleep earlier and less, internet. Try and just take one item only for that week. Try and do it at the same time every day and engage in it every day, even if you don't get it right every day. So if the idea was to drink water, maybe I drank it in the afternoon, not in the morning when I said I would, but I did it. And this leads me to the next point. You have to measure change. And this has got a lot to do with our first point on recording your narrative, on recording your story. If you write it down, you know what's happening. If you don't, you're relying on the old noggin, and there's some recall bias and a lot of ways that we generalize and look at the past. So measure your change. And then you can look back with a sense of, I suppose, honesty and acceptance and go, yeah, I didn't get near these things this week. But if you make it one small task, I'm of the firm belief from a lot of data from some very, very clever social psychologists, one small thing each week, that will be much easier to get to. And then you can build on that. And so you avoid adding more. You don't try and do 16,000 things in 1 week. You do one thing. And maybe you do it again for that second week and third week. And by the fourth week, you're now, whatever it might be, hydrating every day properly. Then you can add the next one. And this is why I call it big, small change. So examples, and these are quite simple, of course, but drink more water, to move more, notice I didn't say get incredibly fit, to say no more, to put up more boundaries, to be more boundaried. Maybe I do it once a day, only with one person, but that's all I do. I keep that cadence for a week. And then eventually we know from a lot of the work in social psychology and developmental psychology that the brain becomes unconscious in being able to repeat it afterwards, so it doesn't actually use up energy and time and intrapsychic work. And this is important, big, small change. The big changes come from small changes. And the third idea to enrich your week is stimulate curiosity. And, specifically in times of stress, curiosity just flies right out the window. The more stressed we are, the more we have on our plate, the more enmeshed we may be in relationships, the more we are worrying about someone else permanently. There's no space for curiosity there. So we know that happens. So a way to enrich that this week would be to attempt to stimulate it. And this could be, by the way, to stimulate curiosity could be your task from number 2. It could be your small way. Curiosity is really important. It makes us feel part of the world. It makes us feel engaged. It makes us feel like there's a reflection. How does that work? Oh, I saw a butterfly. What interesting colors on its wings. I wonder why there's always more traffic in this part of my town at this strange time. I wonder why I choose blue more than other colors when I dress like I do. I wonder why, so stimulate an understanding of wonder around things. And as opposed to trying and solve things. Curiosity is much more popular. Well, it's not popular actually. The curiosity is more popular. Trying to solve things is actually much more popular. So it makes us feel part of the world and not actually away from it. And you don't have to be an expert. This is the other thing, is that, oh, well, I can't be curious about music or because I haven't trained in it, or I can't be curious about electronics because I haven't got a degree, or I can't be curious about psychology because, I haven't studied. If we think we should be an expert on these areas of curiosity, we actually self-inhibit our ability to move towards them because we put up huge amounts of blocks because we're scared to fail, we're scared of being an imposter of some kind. Rubbish. It's all rubbish. Go ahead and be curious about stuff. Look at it, try and understand it, and it can be anything. It doesn't have to be something academic. So find one topic that interests you and dedicate that as an overview of your awareness. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm quite fascinated about how color works, or it's interesting that we see color. Apparently animals don't see color. And then use that as an overview of curiosity for the week. And I'm not talking about going and doing a biology lecture on how the eye works. I'm talking about, oh, how interesting. I often see there are more yellow cars on the road than red cars. Or I often see that waves in colder climates are darker blue. Or it's really interesting that in the morning the light is always more desaturated, always less color. That kind of thing. And you can hear the curiosity. And what I'm doing now is I'm allowing myself to be in the world and to integrate in the world. I'm not just a passenger sitting watching something. I'm actually going in and asking questions and trying to be very, very connected. And curiosity does stimulate connection, because eventually you'll start finding like-minded people around it. It doesn't have to be a hobby, but an insight or a desire. So let's say I'm keen to know more about how aircraft work, or I'm keen to know more about how animals communicate with each other. And then I don't go and learn how animals communicate with each other from behavioral scientists. I just, when I'm walking my dog, I go to the park and I get curious about it. I get curious about which animals, So this is what I mean by enriching your life. You become really grounded and in the world, as opposed to very, very far away and uninvolved at all. So that's my third tip for enriching yourself. And number 4 kind of would blanket everything, really, and that is to start allowing to accept things, to start allowing to accept, just start accepting things that are, both in our narratives, in our past. This is important about journaling, by the way, because if you journal when you're feeling bad, and then suddenly you reflect on that and go, oh, it actually wasn't so bad. You've kind of disavowed that. And you go back to your journaling, you look at your tome or your bowl of wishes, and you go, oh, yeah, at that point I wasn't actually feeling fantastic. So you're allowing self-acceptance, and allowing self-acceptance is actually the first way to start moving towards feeling deep compassion for ourselves and others. So we have these usual patterns of critical voices in our heads that start from a very young age. And they will persist. You may, my very famous example is walking up the stairs with 5 bags in one's hand of shopping and dropping one and then kind of swearing at oneself on one's head. Those kind of narratives persist because we often hear the word no and don't, you can't, stop it, not good enough, don't do that, it's not for you, you're not like that, you're not like, we hear this a lot when we grow up, so it becomes a very kind of focused frequency in our minds. So just be gentle with yourself. Know that these inner critic patterns of thought will persist, but try reframe them at the end of every sentence. So in the example of when I drop the bag because I'm carrying too much going up the stairs, accept that I was overloading myself. I was stressing myself out. You see, I'm accepting it. I'm going, that was what I was doing. And then self-compassion can start to flow, as opposed to just going like, oh, you shouldn't do that, you're such a stupid idiot. So allowing self-acceptance. So you encourage this balanced dialogue of skills and strengths. If I'm at the top of those stairs with that bag in my hand and I'm swearing at myself, I'm not being kind of balanced about what I can and can't do. I can look back and go, Reto, you're stressing yourself out. This is not okay. This is not, you human beings shouldn't have to do this. This is you're very stressed. And then I have a level of acceptance. So it's a very balanced view about my skills. If I'm meant to like run a whole home with 5 kids and look after the family and teach them after school and still be a perfect partner, wow, be balanced about the skills and strengths. We're not superhuman. We're flesh and bone. We're actually marvelously human in all its complexity and beauty. And so when I start allowing self-acceptance, I actually also gear down slightly. And I go, I can't do everything, which is acceptance. I need help, which is now an extra thought that we could have. And this really starts fostering a level of self-compassion which won't be there before. Encourage a balanced dialogue of your mistakes. If you find yourself thinking or ruminating around your mistakes, just pause for a second and allow yourself in the past 2 lines there to understand, were my skills right for that moment? Did I have the support? Were these the right strengths? And just be balanced about mistakes. It's fine to feel a sense of weight around something we've done that maybe has hurt someone else or maybe has had implications, but it's also important to allow balance. And today's whole session is about balance. It's about a way of filling out the one-dimensional story. And finally, I think it's important to reflect on your growth. And you'll do this if you start journaling. It'll happen automatically because you're going to go through the journaling, or maybe the little wish notes that you have in the bowl, or the fridge magnets that you write your daily mantra on or your daily experience on. So you will start seeing, I will start seeing my history and my narratives around me, which is very good because it helps me feel grounded, and it also helps me feel more better framed, more widely framed than just, this human being doing one thing. But to reflect on it requires a special kind of skill. So we are very well versed at looking at the past and picking out the stuff that we did wrong and the problems that we've had. And we can become very well skilled at reprimanding ourselves. So the core challenge here in this week of these 5 things that will enrich your life is to create a small space every day just to validate yourself and going, you're pitching up, you're doing the best you can. It's rough, but you're doing the best you can. That validation isn't saying you're amazing, you're a star, you're fantastic, you nailed it. That is saying you've pitched up into the world, and the world is tough, and the world is tricky, and relationships can be hard, and there's a lot of intrapsychic distress that we can have. But you're there. And that validation is just acknowledgement. And I guess in some ways it's like the previous point to acceptance. And also when you reflect on growth, what you will see, I think, if you start journaling or if you have journaled, is that growth is slow. It's slow, but actually slow growth is better because it's marginal. But we need to be able to see it. We can't reflect on growth if we can't see it. And often when we sit in front of the mirror and we go, I haven't lost this weight, I look the same way, my clothes don't fit. We see ourselves right now. We don't see the history of what happened. So take time every day, a small amount of time, to reflect on the things that do move, the things that do shift. Very important. Otherwise, we ignore those and we just look at the things that have become stuck. We only look at the things that become stuck. And then we stop seeing in others where they're growing. So a little side note here is to validate others. So I hope that helps. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you live today, but if you're watching this recorded, then know that I'm with you in spirit. I hope that there's been a lively discourse in the chat, and if there hasn't, reflect on these 5 ways that you can enrich your life. And of course, they're eternal. They're not just for a week, but good to start, of course, a Monday with that. And all I need to end off with is to let you know and to remind you all that you are enough, you are worthy, and you will make mistakes, and you will do wonderful things, and you will be bored, and you will be interested, and you'll be curious. And above all of these things, you are beautiful. Please be gentle with yourself and others, and I hope to see you very soon.